Hey everybody, my name is Randy Westgate. I'm a member of St. Edward's Episcopal Church here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Hello friends, Rick Bauer. I'm the rector here at St. Edward's Episcopal Church, and Randy has been serving now for a couple years as our senior warden and is a longtime member and helps to lead our praise band, certainly helps me to keep my sanity when things in ministry go awry.
I do what I can, yeah.
No doubt, no doubt. And a lot of folks around town know Randy as their recently retired family physician.
Year and a half now.
Yeah.
So, but still finding plenty of things to do.
No
Very
doubt,
busy,
no
very
doubt,
busy.
no doubt.
Yeah.
But Randy had come to me with this idea about finding a platform where we could take a deeper and a more conversational dive into the stuff that comes up on Sunday mornings in sermons and that are percolating in people's heads and hearts as we move through our weeks as a community.
Yeah, it always seems as though when we have time to get together during the week after a sermon that there'll be something that I'll want to bring up and talk about and get some more input on and have you just, talk about it a little bit more. So I thought that might be something that other people would appreciate as well.
Oh, I really appreciate the idea and the interest, and this is our first attempt at this kind of a thing. But fire away. I mean, we haven't planned anything. I don't know what's on your heart, but
well, we're here in Advent, of course, and we're in this season of watching and waiting. And your sermon spoke to that on Sunday, and then the previous week, Wanda in her sermon was addressing that as well. And I was really interested in the reading from 2 Peter from last weekend, which you spoke to, Rick. And that reading has the sentence in there that I remember very well about the difference between our time and God's time. And I'll probably misquote this, but it's that sentence where we're to remember that a day for us might be like 1,000 years for God, or vice versa, perhaps.
Right.
And just that difference there, and our sense of waiting is not going to completely line up lots of time with God's time, with His sense of when the timing is right for something. And that's really appropriate for Advent, I think.
No doubt. You know what I love about your lifting up that reading from 2 Peter is that there's a statement in there that sticks out to me as well, but it's not that one. It's where we end off there in that pericope, and this was the idea that the patience of the Lord is salvation. You know, I think that in terms of organized Christianity, one of the more potentially destructive tendencies is for us to have this sense that Jesus is on the way back, and so let's get on with it. Because in real terms, sometimes the effect can be we almost want to hasten the end of the world. And I think throughout the ages we've seen real evidence of that.
Well, that's ironic because the early Christians, including Paul, were expecting Jesus to come back any day now.
Without a doubt. And that's one of those things about 2 Peter. I think we had mentioned this in that sermon, that there's almost like we catch a glimpse of the moment happening when folks are saying, well, maybe we got to dig in our heels because this doesn't appear to be happening.
A little bit of a shift in emphasis there.
And what I thought was so interesting is, in terms of Advent, a season of expectation, it strikes me as a little bit ridiculous for us to say, well, on Christmas morning, Advent ends and God is in the world. And, I don't think that's the point. I think the point is for us to get better at learning how to wait. And I remember thinking when I was working with the material that it's never not now, right? That was in that.
I remember
it's
you
never
used that phrase
not
as well.
now, and how the past and the future are projections. And I think this was even before I started writing that last sermon. I had written in my little address book something that just popped into my head of like, okay, it's never not now. Jesus is not coming back now. So do the math. We're called to wait.
Yes.
So what I wonder about, and what is certainly becoming more true for my own sense of personal faith, is the quality of my own waiting, the quality of our waiting. Are we able to function in a mode that we are prepared for God to greet us right now and say, well, here you are at work in the vineyard, doing your best to live a certain way, to be a certain way, to be in community, to be kind, to be peaceful, to be hopeful, to be loving, these sort of Advent characteristics, to be joyful even in the midst of a lot of hardship. And I think that that's stuff that happens right now, that happens in the here and now. And part of what kind of hit me in a new way this year, because we read this stuff over and over again over the courses of our life, through this 3-year lectionary cycle. Anytime we hit the Bible and open the pages, I think it speaks to us in a different way. Like the Bible is reading us as much as we are reading it. And the idea of this thing of the patience of the Lord being salvation, for me, hit me in a way of saying, maybe the point is not the catchphrase, is not the bumper sticker, the Jesus has saved me, have you been saved? Like, what does that mean?
Yes, you mentioned that. You used that sentence in your sermon. Let's get rid of our catchphrases, or let's put our catchphrases in our back pocket, I think is the way you said it. And I wondered about that, but I guess that's what you're talking about. I think you're talking about that idea of salvation again, and what that really means in the here and now.
Because, I think there's always that invitation, and sometimes it sounds like mumbo jumbo, but we always talk about the both and, right? In our tradition.
Sure.
And it's like, yes, by accepting that Jesus, that Christ, has this salvific currency in our lives, that we can find a meaning in that sense of cross resurrection that tells us, in reality things come to an end, but they begin again. That there's birth, there's death, there's rebirth, really a 3-pronged movement.
Yes.
That's always unfolding around us, and we can locate ourselves in that story. What does it mean to potentially inhabit that in a lifelong, life-wide, life-deep manner? That isn't this thing of, well, I've checked that box off, now I can go on with my life.
Yes.
Because I think that the effect of a lot of Christianity, particularly in our nation now, is like that. You show up, you do your thing, you're inspired, you're enlivened, you feel like you're right with God, and you get on with your life.
And your salvation is insured, but it's something you're thinking about for the afterlife.
Yeah.
And not for this life.
Yeah.
Not for today. Not for tomorrow. Not for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday as you go through the rest of your week.
And in the present moment, Because I think that the interesting thing for me about salvation is it's the moment when I'm really angered by that person that has hurt me, and I'm not able to let it go. I got eyeglasses a couple weeks ago, and there was a problem with the prescription, and I had gotten this pair of glasses that was pretty expensive, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do progressive, so I ended up ordering just some standard bifocals, and I was asking about the money that I would get back since I didn't get those more expensive glasses, and the guy's like, that's not how we do it. And I'm like, really? How is that the case? I mean, I felt like I had been treated dishonestly as a consumer. And the guy told me I was a jerk and to get out of his store.
Not in those words.
No, he literally did. He literally called me a jerk.
Well, there's customer service for it.
What was interesting about it is this place had a placard with the 10 Commandments on it.
Oh, wow.
And there was a little booklet on the front desk, Why Did Jesus Die? I mean, this was a very overtly Christian place. And yet, I experienced it in a way that was really, really caustic. I mean, to the point where I would be like, what code are you operating by? You know, had I gone in there cursing the person,
Well, maybe
you know,
then, yes.
no, but even at that, wouldn't one like to think that if you're in a place that is clothed in a Christian atmosphere, that someone would handle even an adversarial presence with gentility?
Yes.
Let alone experience something that was overtly caustic and accusational, that would call a customer a name, you know? But to me, it ties into one. I think that oftentimes that's the practical efficacy of Christianity in this country. The people are not transformed. The people are not changed. The people are not kinder. But correspondingly, for me, it's that moment of, okay, somebody just called me a jerk. They've taken my money. And I want to be angry, maybe, a part of me, you know? I was having one of my better days that day. So I was able to just ask the guy, do you really feel that that's a way that you want to speak to
That's appropriate.
a customer? And I did bring the religion into this stuff. I said, you know, I'm seeing all this stuff about God and the 10 Commandments. And,
So what happened?
you know,
That's interesting. Did he back off?
he said that I had provoked him to call me a jerk. That it was my fault,
your
essentially.
fault.
And so, you know, I left in peace. But I don't want to focus too much on that vignette, but it was more a matter of how those sorts of exchanges in the everyday, I think, invite us to ponder the quality of our being saved far more than the slogans, the bumper stickers,
Yes.
the catchphrases that I think we are invited to maybe keep in our back pocket instead of...
Yeah. That encounter that you had reminds me of something that you have said from the pulpit before as well. In that, and perhaps that's, you know, one of the biggest challenges for us as we go through our weeks is to try to see the face of God in every person that we meet. Even the person who calls you a jerk, who obviously has issues and is having a bad day, and you know there's other issues there that, you know, if you could get to know that guy, maybe you could, you know, help him, you know, get out from under some of that stuff. But that's the challenge, is that when we're provoked, where we're in a rough situation, an uncomfortable situation, an adversarial thing at the whatever store it might be or whatever, is to try to see that other person also as a child of God. Yeah.
And to take that wondering a step further, I tend to think that it is the place where we get a chance to test out our discipleship.
Sure.
Not matching force with equal force. You know? And if we follow that down a rabbit hole at a distance, I also tend to think that it sheds light on our questions about violence and war as a collective. You know, we can justify attacking because we have been attacked, oftentimes as people, as a society, as nations. And yet the question always remains, is there not only another way, but is there a better way? And clearly different situations, you know, entail different responses. You know, it's easy to oversimplify, but in terms of our personal journeys, I don't think any of us ever run out of opportunities to try not to be overwhelmed by our anger, by our sense of entitlement to wound as we have been wounded.
Yes.
But it is disappointing to me that more often than not, folks who go to church, folks who have the bumper stickers, don't always seem to be making the world a better place.
Well, we all have a tendency to be hypocritical at times, don't we? Yeah, absolutely.
What I like about though is, being able to start with ourselves.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a cool thing, I don't know if anybody's even still going to watch this, but I sense in you, my friend, someone who has done a lot of work in terms of your own life and spirituality. And that part of your gentility with others is that you've put a little bit of responsibility on yourself for doing some unpacking.
Well, thank you. That's probably true. Yeah. But you're an inspiration to me, man. I'll tell you.
No, likewise.
And when you talk about, and you talked about this in a sermon this fall, I think, before Advent, that not only is it something that we can aspire to see the face of God in each person that we encounter in our lives, but also to look in the mirror and see that as well.
Yeah.
And maybe that's even harder sometimes.
I think it is harder sometimes, because there's even, one of the things that a lot of folks, especially in leadership in the Episcopal Church, we were having a little bit of a conversation about this. Mm-hmm. There's a thing about, it's very easy to publicly virtue signal with, I am just going to love you even though I can't stand you. It's condescending. It's not even rightly motivated, I think, sometimes, Mm-hmm. Whereas it is so much harder, even in a playful way, to look at ourselves when we are not happy with ourselves and to say, I'm okay with you.
Yes.
I want to learn how to love you better. I want to learn how to be better to you. And frankly, my reasons for focusing in on that at points this year have been because it has been a struggle for me. Mm-hmm. I'm looking back at 2023 and saying, divorce. And not a good one. Not being under the same roof with my boys every night, which is killing me. I'm still not resolved with that. Trying to be open to the possibility of newness of life and other love and it not maybe lining up. And having to say in those really lonely desert moments that I've got to be a better friend to myself. Mm-hmm. I've got to learn how to be more kind to myself so that I can access places where when someone is hooking me, because that's the difference of you're blaming someone for our problems. It's like, the guy who called me a jerk, saying, well, you drove me to it. I don't want to lend someone else that power, to invite me to behave in a way that I don't want to behave. But it still happens. Yeah. But I think that's part of the work of learning how to recognize the holy in ourselves, to invite the presence of that part of ourselves when we are not in good spaces. And then the neat thing about a community like St. Edward's is having the ability to talk about these things, to unpack these concepts, and then to do that work together in real time, so that we're gradually getting a little better. And then when we screw up, realizing that we're in a community of people who are naming those things for one another, so that we don't have to be ashamed and feel browbeaten about it. We can just keep doing the work again and continuing with it. And in that way, to me, that's where the real fruit from that 2 Peter reading comes to life. That the patience of the Lord becomes our salvation. Because we are engaging that work. We are reclaiming the things that plague us or bring us sorrow or make us feel like we have failed in life or we aren't who we want to be. We haven't accomplished what we've wanted to accomplish. But we're all in process.
Yes.
And to be able to linger in a becoming that never arrives, I think is really, really biblical. And this brings me back to the concept of the Exodus. Anybody who's ever been in Egypt and been in Israel will know that, it shouldn't take you 40 years years to get across the Sinai.
Right.
You know, so maybe there's a theological point in that desert wandering that we're meant to be a people on the way.
And trying to be patient with that in the waiting, in the journey. Yeah.
So patient with salvation, patient with community, most certainly patient with ourselves, right?
And patient with those other people who call us a jerk. Yeah.
And I'd like to think that there's a loving way that we can look in the mirror. I've certainly been trying to do this and say, you know what? You are a bit of a jerk.
It's part of the ball game.
Yeah. And to be like, you know, all right, let's keep working on it. Instead of you're a jerk, I can't stand you. You know, because I think a lot of us can do that to ourselves, right?
And that's an unpleasant place to be too, when you can't move on, when you can't move forward. And those of us who have experience in recovery, one of the things we say, we talk about forgiveness, and they say in recovery there's three people that you need to forgive, at least in Celebrate Recovery, the recovery program that I attend. Forgive God, forgive other people, and then the hardest is to forgive ourselves and to be kind with ourselves. And it's very true.
No doubt about it. But we are a work in progress.
All on the journey. All right. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, brother. God bless
And
you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. We're allowed to say that. We're going to try and do this periodically. And if anybody watches this kind of stuff and has questions or wonderings for things that we could talk about, let us know here at St. Edward's. And we look forward to continuing to travel together.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas, everybody.
God bless you.